Day for Newfoundland-born artist and illustrator David Cutler. Today's the day that a Marvel Comics project he helped illustrate is being released. Now, this isn't just your average comic book, though. It's what some comic insiders are calling groundbreaking. It's called Marvel Voices, Indigenous Voices #1. David Cutler joins me now on the phone from Toronto to tell us all about it. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So let's start at the beginning here. Give us an idea of what Marvel Voices, Indigenous Voices #1 is all about.
What is it all about? Well, it's the second in what has become a series. The first one was just called Marvel Voices, and it featured Black and African American creators, focusing entirely on Marvel's staple of Black and African American characters. So it gave vehicles and a voice both to the creators and the characters as well. And that came out, I believe, in February and was a pretty big success. So here we are at the second one, which is still a #1, but it's Marvel Voices, Indigenous Voices. Now this time we get to hear from Indigenous creators, writers, artists, and the Marvel's, to their credit, rather large staple of Indigenous characters.
I mean, looking at the list of credits and the people that worked on this project, it's a pretty impressive list, too. Give us some of the names here.
Well, I worked with Stephen Graham Jones, who is an amazing and accomplished horror writer. He's from the Blackfeet Nation. He's won the Bram Stoker Award. He's been nominated for the Goodreads Award in horror, I believe. I have to confess that I am too ignorant to have heard of him beforehand, but when I told my friends in academia about him, they were more impressed that I was working with Stephen Graham Jones than I was working for Marvel. So that was their big takeaway. Like, oh wow, this guy, he's great. So apparently he's great. He did write an amazing story. And Kyle Charles is an illustrator out of Alberta, I believe, and he illustrated the Danny Moonstar story, which was kind of what I wanted to do. She's one of my favorite characters, but he did an amazing job. It looks fantastic.
Is this the first time really that Marvel or any real sort of major comic book creator has included Indigenous voices?
I believe it has. It is. I don't know offhand of any Indigenous writers or artists previously who'd worked on Marvel books. I think this is the first.
I want to talk about
it is, as far as I know.
So, certainly for mainstream sort of comic releases, for sure, right?
So for Marvel, yes, but I mean, there's tons of creators of Native background in the industry and smaller companies doing self-published work. There's plenty of stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about reviews for this. It's being released today, but they're already, like we talked in the intro, calling it groundbreaking and visionary. Looking back, did you realize the impact of the work that you were going to be doing and the impact it could potentially have?
I knew it was going to be important. I was really, really impressed with Marvel for spearheading this initiative, especially since you can be cynical about this sort of thing, but Native communities are really underserved by comic book stores, and I would hazard a guess that most Native people don't live anywhere near a comic book store. I mean, I didn't see a comic book store until I was 19, until I'd left the province, basically. So it's a real initiative to show that we exist. Yeah, we exist in the real world. We exist in the fictional world, and it seems really powerful to me. And the 3 stories, I got to read them entirely. They're powerful stories. They're a little continuity heavy because these aren't like one-offs. They do matter to the overall Marvel universe. But yeah, I knew it would be important, and I'm glad that it's being received that way.
I want to talk about, as an artist, the process of creating something like this. Where do you even begin, going from a blank page to having an entire book full of this original art? Because I think a lot of people look at comic books and they sort of discount it as being art, but this is pretty incredible stuff. So where do you begin with that process?
The process begins with the research. Every time you get a comic book script, which nowadays are full scripts, not unlike movie scripts, that tell you beat for beat the action. Back in the day, they used to have something called the Marvel method, where a Marvel writer would send you just a blurb, basically, and it was the artist's job to draw that out into a 20-page comic, or 10-page each in the case of Indigenous Voices. Luckily, it was a full script. So you have that. In every full script, there's stuff you've never drawn before. And and this one, for me, especially so, it's our story is set in the late 1800s in northern Alberta. So basically nothing in the story had I ever drawn before. So first thing, Google image search, the library, wherever you can find photos. Then you do rough layouts, typically a few inches by a few inches of each page. You get the gesture of the action, the flow of the story. And from there, that goes off to the editor. The editor approves, gives her input, like anything that needs to be changed, yada, yada, yada. And then that gets blown up into a full image, which is on the low end, like it's at least 8 hours work. At the speed that I work, it's like 12, 14 per page. And when you see somebody read a comic, it goes by so fast. It's sort of heartbreaking to be like, oh, I was up till 6 a.m. on that page, and you're on the next page. But c'est la vie.
David, from start to finish, how long did it take you to do this project?
Well, it was really compressed because it landed. I got the email. I already had a full plate of stuff, more than I could handle as it was of illustration work to do. And this had to fit in the middle. And I mean, you don't say no to Marvel. You can't say no to Marvel unless you're a fool. So I had to make it work. So I would say from like when I first did the character designs, because my story features a character called Silver Fox, she's like Wolverine. She has a healing factor, so she's very long-lived. And this is her more than 100 years ago, so she's not in a superhero costume. This is before anybody ever put on spandex and, ran across rooftops. So she had to have a Blackfoot native-inspired outfit. There's also a new character who needed his own costume. So there was a lot of that. But when I actually got to the 10 pages, I believe it was 9 days to do the 10 pages because I was just so swamped with everything else. But right. I stayed up for 24 hours on the last day, and I got it done. So I'm very proud about that.
David, I'm almost out of time here. I'm leaving you a whopping 45 seconds here for this last big question. But on a personal note, you're Indigenous as well. Talk about what it means to you to be part of this project and to put out this story.
It means a lot to me to be recognized as Indigenous and included with all these amazing creators. Growing up in Bay St. George's, it wasn't. I had family members who were very, very enthusiastic and were trying very hard to get us recognized, but it wasn't something talked about. It was a part of our history that we just completely lost. And to have it back and to be looked at as a First Nations person, a First Nations artist included in this amazing, amazing compilation, I couldn't be more pleased. And to be in a Marvel comic, I mean, I'm over the moon.
Any chance of another opportunity with Marvel or any other projects on the horizon?
Fingers crossed, of course. But if this is it, if you're a kid who dreams of going to the moon and you get to go there, you're there for 2 hours, you don't get home and be like, man, I really wish I would have hung out there for a whole weekend. I've been to the moon. I can take that to the grave, I think.
Amazing. Listen, David, it's such a pleasure to finally get a chance to talk to you about this. Thanks for making time. Thanks for getting up early as well. We appreciate it.
I'm working, so I didn't go to bed yet.
Oh.
Well, I'm on the other end.
Thanks for taking a break then. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, listen, all the best and keep us posted on everything, okay?
All right, will do. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
David Cutler is an artist and illustrator originally from this province, now based in Toronto. How cool is that?
I have to say that I love his attitude about if you had a chance to fulfill a dream once, no matter how limited a time you had to do that or how many opportunities you had to do that, just be grateful for the fact that you did it. Yeah. Just awesome. So absolutely. Congratulations to him, but wishing him all the best in the future career that he will be pursuing as an artist and illustrator, of course. We certainly wish to hear from him more about other projects down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of down the road, I just